Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third edition of the Buzz Live, BeeWare's monthly community call. And yes, I'm still counting. This is the time when the core team and the community come together to discuss everything BeeWare. For those who haven't seen BeeWare before, it's a collection of tools and libraries for writing cross-platform GUI applications in Python, including desktop applications for macOS, Windows, and Linux, mobile applications for Android and iOS, and single-page web apps. As a quick overview, we'll begin with core team introductions, followed by State of the Hive and where we need help. After that, it's Waggle Dance time, and followed by Down the Bee Burrow. We'd like to acknowledge that many of us on this call today are speaking from the lands of First Nations. We'd like to recognize the continuing connection of the people of those First Nations to their lands, waters, and culture, and pay respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. I'd like to introduce myself first. I'm Kattni, and I'm speaking from the lands of the Bodéwadmi, also known as Southeast Michigan, US. My involvement in BeeWare is mostly around developer relations. I focus primarily on building the community, writing documentation, and improving the experience for those who find the project. I will now let the other folks on the core team introduce themselves. Russell?
Hi everyone, my name is Russell Keith-Magee. I'm speaking from Whadjuk Noongar boodja, otherwise known as Perth, Western Australia. I am the founder of the BeeWare project, and my interests are wide and varied. If there's something in the BeeWare project, I've got my fingers in it somewhere. Passing on to Philip.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, I can hear you.
My name is Philip James. I am in Alameda, which is traditionally the land of the Ohlone people in the East Bay Area of California. And I have been serving as a core team member since 2016 or 2017. I don't remember exactly which.
Yeah, 16, I think. Memory serves.
Yeah, probably. Seems likely.
Excellent. Thank you. We'd also like to recognize BeeWare's financial sponsors, our gold sponsor Anaconda, and our individual financial members. If you would like to support the work of the BeeWare project, visit beeware.org/membership. Next up is State of the Hive. This is your monthly BeeWare by the numbers update. Overall, across the entire project, we merged 383 PRs from 38 authors. Some of this activity was driven by the EuroPython sprints. Malcolm Smith presented on porting Python packages to Android and iOS. We'd like to recognize this month's community contributors. Take it away, Russell.
Hey, and a very big thanks this month to Alex, Aleš Laník, and Monteiro, Andrew Barnes, Armor Break 001, Aronnax, Columbus Labs, Daniel Del Rio, Dresden, MRRD, Jainam h.maru, Jan Koprowski, Jalon's Dalen, John, Jonathan, Likhitha J, Luis Palacios, MGS Tabrani, Michaela Dušková, apologies, Michal Várady, Nishchaya Sharma, Oluwatoyosi, Oluwatoyosi, Peter Abolaji, and I do apologize for mutilating that one. Phyo Sone, doing well today. Poly Labs, Rahul Patel, Reduced Radius, Robin, Rohit Madhavan, Shara Shrivastava, Siddharth Bias, Snea, Solaris Star, Stan Ulbrich, Thomas Nguyen, and Shintao. And thank you very much for all your contributions this month.
All right. Thank you. We also added a new member to the core team, Oliver Lee. Russell, please let us know a bit about Oliver.
So Oliver is based in Europe and started contributing a couple of months ago, mostly in the Windows backend of Toga, which is an area that we have very badly needed some expertise for a long time, and basically came in, and his first contributions were filling out some widgets that have been on the, we'd really like to have those, but they're not simple, so we don't exactly know what we need to do list. Things like the, for reasons that make sense to Windows, the tree widget on every other platform can have multiple columns, and then there's little collapses to collapse up nodes of the tree. On Windows, by default, the tree widget can only be one column. It can be done, but you've got to know the internals of the Win32 API to make that happen. And for whatever reason has led him there, Oliver knows how to do that. And so we've now got a tree widget with multiple columns. We have a detailed list widget that is actually fully populated. He has resolved a long-standing performance issue with the way that Windows the Windows GUI event loop interacts with the Python event loop. And so basically on the back of those very, very deep technical contributions that he made, made. We offered him core team access. And then the first thing he's decided to work on after joining the core team is to add an entirely new GUI backend, the WinUI 3, which is Microsoft's latest version of a GUI toolkit that they'd like people to use. And so there's a PR in progress adding an entirely new WinUI 3 backend to Toga as an option for deployment. So welcome, Oliver. Thank you for everything you have done. Look forward to everything you're able to do in the future.
Thank you. The two primary projects in the BeeWare suite are Briefcase and Toga. This month on Briefcase, we merged 49 PRs from 11 authors. Russell, if you'd like to talk about Briefcase's notable new features.
Yeah, this has been a very big month for Briefcase activity. We have landed a number of very significant changes that have been a long time coming. The first two, 2970 and 2972, is the continuation of some work, or the sort of the finalization of some work that started getting done at the end of last year by some students at Curtin University we had working on BeeWare. Essentially making sure that when you build apps in Briefcase, that they are using isolated standalone environments to build those applications. The students last year did a bunch of work to get the mechanics in place for using virtual environments at all. Over the last couple of months, we've been slowly expanding out the scope of where those environments are being used. And then in this last month, what we've seen is that you can now use UV to create those environments, and you can use Conda to create those environments. So you essentially now have the speed of a UV environment, or the binary guarantees of a Conda environment can now be extended into the apps that you're building building through Briefcase. During the development process, there was a brief period where we were also experimenting with a Pixie backend, which is essentially UV but for the Conda ecosystem. It works. It wasn't quite right in the same way that UV has a very, very strong set of opinions about locking and the tools you use for locking. Briefcase is not currently interacting with the locking side of things, and Pixie makes it a little bit more difficult to avoid the locking side of things. So we haven't gone down the full path of a Pixie backend yet. I certainly want to get into the locking story in the not too distant future, and hopefully when we resolve what we're doing with locking, introducing a Pixie backend will be, I won't say simple, but certainly a lot easier than it would have been. And the framework is essentially there that an environment management is just a plugin that can be put in. Implement the Pixie backend against the API that's there, and Pixie stuff should just happen. We've also had a community contribution, someone whose first contribution to the BeeWare project was adding signing to Linux system packages. Briefcase has been able to sign Windows MSIs, and it's been able to sign macOS, so sign and notarize macOS packages for a while. Linux packages have kind of been there as we know that we should be signing them. We know that Linux has the ability to sign them, but I don't know, how do you do that? And so the contribution here has come in and landed that one, adding signing across when you're building a Linux system package using GPG. There's actually still another PR in flight. The current implementation only works when you are building, you're on a Debian machine building a Debian package. You can also build things in Docker, or build Linux packages through Docker. There's obviously a thing about, and how do I get my credentials into the Docker container, which we're currently trying to work through. But there's making good progress on implementing that change. The other set of changes that have landed this week is sort of part of a general trend that we've been focusing on this quarter, which is security. Briefcase has when you install Briefcase then goes off and downloads a bunch of other stuff. It downloads Android SDKs. It downloads tools like RC Edit. It downloads Wix, which is the Windows packaging tool. It downloads a bunch of stuff. And every time you are downloading something from an external source, you kind of have to assume the hackers have got there first. And so anything you can do to verify that the thing that I'm downloading is actually the thing that I meant to download is just good security posture. Most good package repositories will publish an MD5 hash or a SHA-1 hash of whatever it is that they've published alongside the package that they've published, that is then signed and verified in some way. And so now when Briefcase goes and downloads something from a third-party source, including Briefcase's own tools like the support packages, and what have you, Briefcase will now verify those hashes. So this is good both from in terms of was the download corrupted when I did something happen to the network connection and I lost 3 bytes in the middle of it, but also is someone malicious in there and actually modifying the hash in a way that we weren't aware of. That also extends to templates. This is something that was been there's a lot of the supply chain attacks that have been occurring recently on GitHub have been tied to the fact that GitHub tags and GitHub branches are not static. So even if something is tagged as a version 1.2 on GitHub, there's no guarantee that that tag hasn't changed over time. And so even though my code says use the thing on GitHub that's tagged version 1.2, an attacker with sufficient credentials can get into a repository, retag something malicious, and then everybody who's based on that, working off of that tag, is now basically impacted, and they don't even know they're impacted because the version of the thing, the version 1.2 that they're downloading, has changed. Briefcase was effectively potentially exposed to that because we're using branches for templates. So when you download Briefcase 0.4.3, you're using the 0.43 branch of the template. We now actually verify that not only is it that branch, but it's that branch at this commit hash. And so we know exactly what version is there. There are all sorts of mechanisms to override that, to say, no, deliberately, I want to use this different hash. I know this has changed. I want to use a different hash. And if you are providing your own downloads, you can provide your own hashes for those so that you can internally perform your own. I'm using a custom support package, and here is the hash for the custom support package to make sure that's worked. So that's all there, just part of a general security hardening posture for Briefcase. That's all landed in the last couple of weeks and will be in the next release of Briefcase, which should be in early September. Back to you, Kattni.
Thank you. This month on Toga, we merged 57 PRs from 8 authors, and Russ will now cover Toga's new features.
Yes, over the course of the month, we've resolved a lot of issues with DPI scaling on Windows. We had John, who has been on this call regularly in the past, jumped on a report that came from a user who sort of said, I've got multiple desktops at different DPIs, and when I move windows back and forth between windows with different DPIs, the window keeps getting bigger and bigger. It turns out that almost every other platform, Mac OS, Linux, when you have a layout and everything is kind of done in abstracted screen coordinates, and it works out the math around DPIs so that when you say I want something to be 100 pixels wide, what 100 pixels actually means varies depending upon the screen, the density of the display. Windows doesn't. Every display maintains it independently. So when you say 100 pixels, it's 100 pixels, literally 100 pixels. And if you're on a 4K display that's running at 2 times screen density, that 100 pixels is actually half the size you think it was. And so you actually need to be able to keep track where the window is, and when you move a window to a different window, that the screen resolution changes. And we had a little edge case where it was kind of a little hysteresis loop was happening where it was scaling up. There's a bunch of related changes that happen to that in terms of exactly when things are resized and exactly how sizes are resized. John got to the bottom of that one, and we've now got a much more stable set of DPI scaling changes. We've also done a little bit of a refactoring around the way the Windows package is distributed. In order to support WebView and the WebView canvas, the Windows backend needs access to a DLL that provides a connection to the system-provided Edge browser. Historically, we have packaged that as part of Toga, which then means that essentially Toga is a Toga WinForms is a very weird package that is labeled as being a Pi3 Nun Win32 ARM64 or Pi3 Nun Win32 AMD64 binary, which means it is doesn't care what version of Python you're using, pure Python, but binary specific, which is an awkward thing to produce because most your setup tools and your hatch and tools like this don't really deal with that because it's not something that normally happens. And it's to the extent that most packages that actually have this problem lie and say it's just a Pi3 Nun any wheel and include all the binaries for all platforms. We don't do that because we don't want you to have to download Windows DLLs to put into your Mac OS application. And so our Toga packaging story has always been a little bit complicated. We've now resolved that. We've actually taken the binaries and put them into a completely standalone third-party package on Pyae. The complexity of the packaging is now in that package, and we can bump that package every time Windows releases a new version of WebView, of the WebView 2 bindings. And Toga WinForms is now back to being a pure Python package with a dependency on the binary piece. So that's simplified the Toga packaging story a little bit. We've also added, thanks to a community contribution, we added lifecycle hooks for macOS. That means that essentially every stage, Toga aspires to provide flexibility to do anything. Essentially, if the platform allows it, you have a mechanism to do it. macOS made that a little bit more complicated because there are certain things around the application delegate, the piece that you the thing you install to say, okay, tell me when the application starts. Tell me when the application is about to shut down. Tell me when the application has shut down. Tell me when the application is going to be put into suspend mode. We had that handler, but it wasn't exposed in a way that end users could extend it. It's now exposed in a way that end users can extend it. And we'll come to that. We've implemented that for macOS. There is scope to do that for other platforms as well. And we have resolved an issue with macOS toolbar handling over the last couple of releases. macOS, like Liquid Glass, is the obvious one with macOS 26, but they've been subtly changing how macOS displays toolbars, and we inadvertently found out that there has been quite a substantial change that was causing toolbars, depending upon exactly the format you provided icons, toolbars wouldn't necessarily render correctly. And we've now resolved that. There may be some additional changes coming to sort of remove labels from toolbars by default, because that seems to be the direction that macOS is hinting in terms of what a native application should look like. That's a sort of summary of what's happened in Toga this month. Back to you, Kattni.
Thank you. This month, across the rest of the BeeWare project, we merged 277 PRs from 25 authors. There have been some notable changes here as well. Russell?
Yeah, and again, the 25 authors and 277 PRs, it sounds like there's been a lot of work, and they is all very, very, a lot of work that's happened. The thing that's interesting here is that a lot of them are in this vein of security enhancements. There is a tool that has sort of become increasingly common called Zizmor, which is a sort of an auditing tool for looking at GitHub Actions configurations. It will read your GitHub Actions. You can install it as a pre-commit hook, so when you make a change to your GitHub Actions, it will audit your GitHub configuration to see, are there any notable security problems? Are you using this in a way that could be vulnerable to security issues? One of the big things that it does is it actually does hash pinning on every GitHub action you reference. So, if you're referencing the actions setup Python workflow that GitHub publishes, it's not just saying we want version 7.1 of that action. It's version 7.1 and this commit hash to make sure that if GitHub is ever compromised, that compromise is not something that's then going to be reflected on every person that then uses the Python setup tools action, or the Python setup Python action. Zizmor. We essentially everywhere, every project that's using GitHub Actions needs to use Zizmor. And we haven't got 100% coverage yet. We do have significant coverage over our projects. A lot of the commits this month have come through Zizmor, installing Zizmor and then fixing the auditing problems that have been found. It's not just hashing of commits. There are a bunch of other things around the way environment variables are used, the way things are injected into scripts. It finds them, it reports them, and now is being validated. So we know that we're never going to introduce any of those problems again in future. And so a lot of the contributions this month stemming out of the activity at EuroPython are these Zizmor and GitHub Actions improvements. There are still a bunch of open good first issues, so if anybody is looking for a place to contribute, that's a place to contribute. Thank you. Back to you, Kattni.
Thank you. And that's State of the Hive. Next up, where we need help. We're always looking for people to contribute to BeeWare, but sometimes it's hard to know where the help is needed most. This month, we're looking for help with security, and our issue of the month is on Toga. Russell, if you'd like to elaborate.
Yeah, so I've kind of already led into both of these discussions. Number one is the lifecycle hooks. We've added lifecycle hooks for macOS because we needed this, what's called an application delegate. The application delegate now has an exposure on the internal macOS class, so that if you are on macOS, I know I'm on macOS, and I need to do this special thing that I know is only available on macOS, you can hook in now, and you can write an application that will hook into that internal without having to do really, really deep dental surgery to get access to those lifecycle hooks. But Android, GTK, Windows all have analogous lifecycle hooks, and we need to expose all of those lifecycle hooks in ways that an Android developer can hook in and hook into an Android lifecycle, or a GTK developer can hook into a GTK lifecycle, and so on. This is one where you don't have to solve the problem for every platform. Picking one platform and exposing it is all you need to do. And you can take the pattern that has been done in macOS and just sort of apply that to how it is applied to, or what the appropriate, different, the names of the hooks are different. The pattern for how those hooks are exposed is basically the same. So if you are interested in getting involved in Toga contribution, it's not a tiny patch, but it will require a little bit of expertise to get going, but it's certainly an approachable problem with a well-established pattern for how it can be tackled. The other, sort of on the much more approachable side of things, is finalizing our Zizmore updates. We have a bunch of tickets labeled for Zizmore, labeled for grouping GitHub, Dependabot actions, and adding cooldown for Dependabot actions. They're all on the BeeWare getting ready, the Be Ready project page. They're all tagged as good first issues and approachable issues. The change is essentially one pull request updating either a Zizmore configuration file or updating a Dependabot configuration file. There are patterns for this is how the same change has been made in other repositories, so it should be a relatively straightforward lift from here is a configuration in one template, let's make the same change to a different template. So if you're looking for a relatively straightforward way to get involved with open source contribution, those options are there on the table. Back to you, Kattni.
Thank you. Are you interested in contributing? You can find all the issues that are ready to be picked up at beeware.org/BEE/ready. And that's where we need help. Next up, it's waggle dance time. When worker bees find a good source of pollen and return to the hive, they do a waggle dance to tell the rest of the bees where to find the good stuff. So here's the BeeWare community waggle dance, all the cool stuff that's been happening in the BeeWare community. I'll start, and then I'll go through the list as shown in the notes. When I call your name, unmute your mic and provide your update. If you're text only, I will read your notes. Just let me know. So over the last month, I ran Pyae Ohio. It's a small regional conference, that Python conference in Ohio. We had almost, what did we have? Almost 200 people this year. It was amazing. We had a leadership summit ahead of time. That was a new thing. It went really well. I obviously am still exhausted. And I've had some new life developments that have kept me occupied. It's not something I can announce yet, but definitely next month you will hear about that. I haven't had a chance to do much BeeWare stuff in the meantime. Next up is Russell.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff that I've been working on, you've already heard about. Finalizing the environment handling PRs, adding support for UV and Conda, and experimenting to see what we could do with Pixie as well, just trying to feel out what was going on there. The environment handling, that sort of took a good chunk of time, and then the download hash handling is also a significant chunk of time out of the last month. The other piece that's kind of what has been keeping me busy all of this week is that PyCon Australia is coming up in a week and a half's time, and I am presenting, giving a presentation. Kattni will be there and is presenting as well, and I will be leading, and Kattni will be there, as will Katie McLaughlin. Will be doing a workshop. Very first thing, the opening salvo of PyCon Australia is a BeeWare workshop, and this will be a completely new tutorial workshop activity, never before seen. I am low-key excited because the story is kind of cool, and all the cool kids are going to be there. So if you're in Australia, you're absolutely going to be a cool kid, right? And come along to PyCon Australia and join in. The PyCon Australia tickets are still available. I don't know if there's still places available in the workshop. I haven't seen sales numbers on that recently, but I am very excited, and hopefully I'll be able to share that workshop elsewhere around the world in the not too distant future. We also, just unrelated to the work that I've been doing, there has been some very interesting developments over the last month. Adjacent, that I'm not responsible for, but very enthusiastic about, and hearing that they've happened. After, I mentioned last week that last month, that I'd been spending some time getting NumPy patches up to date and refreshed and available. Those patches have now landed. So NumPy's source tree now includes official support for iOS. It also includes official support for Android, because Malcolm was able to get his patches landed. And off the back of that, the NumPy project has made a modification to NEP56. So NEP is the NumPy enhancement proposal. It's the NumPy analog of the Python enhancement proposals, or PEPs. NEP56 is the NumPy, what platforms do we support and how much do we support them, document, standards document. And Android and iOS have both been added as tier 3 supported platforms. They are platforms that NumPy officially commits to supporting. Tier 3 for NumPy means that they officially say that they are there, we are running CI against them, we are validating changes against them, but they do not yet officially produce NumPy binary artifacts. They don't produce NumPy wheels. Their position is that a project needs to be in tier 3 for 6 months-ish, to sort of work out, is this actually stable? We're running CI on every pull request. Is CI actually going to stay up? Can we reliably produce the binary artifacts? So we're in a wait and see position. All the conversations that we have had to date are very much, we are enthusiastic and want to support these platforms, but we just need to make sure that the actual changes we've made are stable and aren't going to cause massive maintenance headaches. I mean, aren't going to discover once we land this patch that, oh gosh, every time we change the algorithm for matrix arithmetic, we need to spelunk into iOS changes. So we don't know what the exact timeline is for that. If we're really, fingers crossed, hopeful maybe for the release at the end of this year, wouldn't make business plans based upon that, but it's certainly not outside the realms of the possible. This time next year, we certainly would hope that NumPy will be producing binary wheels. The other standards-related piece, completely unrelated to anything that I had conversations with, I got notified that Rattler Build added support for iOS and Android. So the Pixie ecosystem is literally standing up and saying, yeah, okay, we can see PEP 730 and 738 exist. The Python ecosystem supports these things. These are platforms where binaries matter. We'd better be on that. And so Rattler Build now has support for iOS and Android. And so Wolf is the member of, or the guy's been leading this, has landed the code in Rattler Build to support iOS and Android builds, has started working on sort of a mobile forge, a wheels repository, being able, here are some recipes for a bunch of common packages to get them built into a Conda compatible format. And they've started the drafting process for a SEP, which is a Conda enhancement proposal, adding iOS and Android as officially supported Conda platforms. So again, this is still in draft form. No promises have been made yet. We're still going through the drafting process, but the wheels are starting to turn on iOS and Android being officially supported Conda platforms, which obviously then dovetails nicely into the work that I've sort of landed in the last month, adding support for Conda in Briefcase. Right now, you can't use Briefcase to deploy an iOS or Android app because iOS and Android aren't supported Conda platforms. But with the SEP in place, with a Conda package repository that has those packages, that's producing a Python wheel that's able, or a Python Conda package that can be deployed, the mechanics are now in place to actually be able to do that for iOS as well. The other bit of news we had this week is that, or this month, is that Alex from Rational Matter got in touch. Rational Matter is a company based in the UK that has in the past been a financial supporter of the BeeWare project, and I've sort of kept a back channel, talking with Alex from time to time. Back in the days when MacOS was making the transition to ARM64, so moving from x86 Intel hardware to ARM64 hardware, Rational Matter sort of got in touch and said, hey, we'd like to make sure that BeeWare is able to support this. What do you need? What's stopping this from happening? And I said, well, literally, I don't have an ARM64 MacOS machine to make this happen. And Rational Matter bought us a Mac Mini, basically. They sponsored us and bought us a Mac Mini to say, hey, you can go ahead and, here you go, make it happen, make it work. And so they've continued. They're not active. You don't usually see them around except when they have something to announce. And this month they announced Juno 4. Juno is their iPad iPad Python application, essentially. It's an IDE and sandbox for playing around and writing Python code on your iPad. It is a native iOS application, so it doesn't use Toga for the application itself, but it does use a whole bunch of BeeWare stuff under the hood. It uses the support packages that we compile to provide the Python. It uses Rubicon to talk to, like, sort of bridge between the Python ecosystem and the Objective-C operating system, or the Objective-C tools that exist on the platform. And they are talking about exploring possibly including Toga as part of one of the packages that they have on device, so that you can then start building user interface type stuff in Juno. Again, can't promise anything on that. They're exploring, they're having conversations. We're trying to work out, well, they're trying to work out what they can do. Can't make any promises. I don't work for them. I can't speak for what they're doing. I'm just saying, this is what they're looking at. The good news is that I actually have some giveaways. If anybody would like to have a play around with Juno, jump onto the BeeWare Discord, jump into the Help with BeeWare channel, and give us a heads up. I have 10 voucher codes that I can hand out for if anybody wants to take that for a spin. So spread the love, and give some thanks to Alex for their financial support, or Rush Lobata for their financial support of the BeeWare project over the years. That's everything I've been working on. Back to you, Kattni.
All right. Next is Luis.
Yeah, so this month I improved the 2 Android install failure messages. The first one is when you try to install an app on a device, and that device already has the app installed with a different signing key. Android will block that. The second is it's a version downgrade, basically. So if the device has a newer build and you try to install an older one, Android won't allow it. So both failures now give you a specific message explaining what happened, and provides a command to resolve it.
Excellent. Thank you. Next is John, who has a note but is not currently present, so I will read it. John worked on scaffolds implementation. And next up is Joshua, if you'd like to share anything.
Hello, everyone. So just jumping in to say hi and see how it all works, and it's fantastic, and I'm enjoying the energy. Busy little buzzing bees, bigger numbers than I thought was going on. But I'm playing around in a, well, we could say Juno Light sort of space, where I'm working from first principles, and I'm understanding how I can go from the inspiration of a Toga app to something that I can do that actually has been sitting in the back of my mind for a very long time. And so I have a very big interest in mapping and geographic sort of things. And so by pulling Toga together and having a look at Rubicon and putting some AI assistance behind me, I've managed to pull out something that I can push and play with little roots and little pins and things, and have it compare addresses. The second half of things with what I'm doing is making sure I've got a teachable environment where I understand all the bits and pieces. So I'm working very slowly from first principles and saying, okay, what if I add exceptions? What if I add the testing and the documentation and all the things? So it's very nice. So if you are looking for me to contribute in some places, my next place that I would get involved is probably, you'll see me with some beginner first documentation coming out. That's probably where I'm going to head next.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And that's Waggle Dance time. Last but not least, it's down the bee burrow. Rabbits aren't the only animals that burrow. Some bees do as well. Time to dig deeper into topics that have got the hive a-buzzing. We have a topic from John. John says, one aspect I like about the BeeWare API is that they're easy and simple for beginners to learn and use. However, BeeWare's philosophy is to simplify things and abstract away platform specifics. Do we envision a collection of more platform-specific hacks that allow platform-specific implementations with an API still easy to use and functionally equivalent for other platforms? Russell?
Yeah, okay, so this is an area where I'm I lean very much on my Django heritage here in terms of the broad philosophy. The place where I'm trying to aim here is that the simple should be trivial and the complex should be possible. that the APIs, if you pick up the documentation and you read the API documentation, it should be obvious. I want a button and it's here. And when the button is pressed, it does the thing. That API should be straightforward, obvious, and the smooth path right down the line to exactly where you want to go. Because 90% of applications, that's all they ever need, is just that straight path of I need a button, I need a tab, I need a whatever else, and provide an API that is straightforward and easy for those applications to use. And speaking to AI assistants, it helps when you give them that kind of thing. I've been asked this question a few times recently about what is the role of BeeWare when, well, can't an AI just develop the code for you? Well, an AI can develop the code for Android and it can develop the code for iOS, but it's got to develop the two independently, and then it's got to make sure the two are consistent, and it's got to do it in a language that has memory management and all this sort of stuff going on. Whereas if you can give it, here is a straightforward Python API that puts a button on the screen, you've got to provide the infrastructure to make sure it understands what the API is and provide the assistance, but it's much more likely to get the answer right when there's a straightforward path directly to, you want a button, this is how you put a button. It's good for AIs, it's good for humans. It turns out everything that was good for humans is good for AIs as well. Every piece of engineering practice we've learned is still true, it turns out. But there are times where you reach the end and you've done everything that the simple API does, and you just need this little bit of extra stuff. And the goal of BeeWare, or the goal of Toga, the goal of Briefcase has always been, okay, yes, you've reached the edge of what the simple API can do. We want to provide the escape hatch so that you can get to the low-level stuff if you need to. Now, if you're going down to that layer, maybe we're going to lose some guarantees about exactly how cross-platform compatible it is. You are going to be writing, okay, I'm on macOS, I'm going to be writing some macOS-specific APIs, but we want to be able to provide the guarantee that you can get there and do anything that is technically possible on the platform, make it possible to do it, not necessarily easy to do it. And then document what the officially mandated. This is how you use the escape hatch. When you're through the escape hatch, be aware there be dragons and things are going to break if you don't. You are responsible for everything you do once you're through the escape hatch, but we guarantee the escape hatch will be there. The changes that we've sort of landed with macOS this week or this month is kind of along those lines, is that historically you want to be notified when the application wakes from suspend. Historically, very difficult to do. Now, there is a documented, this is where you can put the code that will be executed when your application comes back from suspend mode. That application, that code, will only work on macOS and is only good as the macOS guarantees, whatever the macOS APIs are doing. If macOS makes an API change, it's up to you to make sure that you are staying on top of those APIs, but you can get through the escape hatch and the mechanism exists. So I wouldn't say that there's more platform-specific hacks. It's more that we are looking to provide as smooth a path to the platform-specific capabilities that are there already. We have historically had some of those for Android. We're looking to add more of them in Android, iOS, all the platforms that we support. But again, the end goal is that those extensions, those hacks, are not something you're going to see if you do the tutorial. You're not going to see, you would need to be well into the advanced tutorial before we talk about this stuff. The vanilla usage of the BeeWare tool suite is just use the tools, get the 80% case covered, but provide the door open so that you can get to anything else the platform can do if you need to, and do that in a platform-specific way. And then the good news is once you discover, oh, well, everybody is trying to write a handler that gets invoked when when an application wakes from sleep. Okay, well, it turns out everybody wants that. Well, okay, the mechanisms are all there. We know what the handlers are. We know where they all are. We've just got to find a good abstraction, put that into the public layer, into the publicly supported, the simple case, provide the simple API that hooks into the internals that we know are there and we know we can already hook into. I hope that answers John's question. I know he mentioned on chat that he needed to jump, so I hope that's answered his question. I don't know if anybody else has anything else they want to throw into that one, or questions, opinions, thoughts on other directions that should go. No?
Sounds like we're good.
All right.
And with that, it's time to wrap up. This has been The Buzz Live. You can find us chatting all month long on the BeeWare Discord. Join at beeware.org/BEE/chat. I want to thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again next month.